Well, I'm finally back home, and for those unaware, I came back to quite a shocking discovery as to how dirty my 124's have become. Blue Black was actually out in the open, and it is coated completely with filth, and even has spiders living in it now. There is deposits of ash because there is a massive bushfire about 60 kilometres away from my house raging out of control. But I also have spiders that have made my 124 a home site. But nonetheless, let's see what this thing starts like after 6 weeks of just sitting here doing nothing. Before going away, I did disable both cars. I have fixed that now, I believe. And obviously I also disconnected both cars' batteries because I didn't want them going flat. So let's see what that starts like. Of course, I will prime the fuel system a few times before cranking the engine because it will have depressurized after such a long period of time. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. Of course, I immediately checked out the air conditioner, and much to my pleasure, it has not lost its charge. Not really that surprising because it has been charged since 2014. So it was already doing well as it was. And yes, it's ice cold already. And the air pump is working as it should as well until the engine warms up anyway. But I know what everyone's here for. They want to see what the monoblocks look like fitted to the red car. And that's what we're going to do now. We need to do first is clean up these ugly looking bolts because I don't want those in my refurbed monoblocks. So I'm going to clean those and then spray them with some silver paint that's high temperature rated. So first I'm going to take 2 bolts out of the fronts, and then I'll take 3 out of the rears so that I can make a set of 5 for each of the fronts. I will only change one axle set of wheels at a time. So this is what they looked like originally, kind of ugly. So I am using the wax and grease remover to clean up these bolts. Admittedly, they weren't even that dirty because I had degreased them before putting the car back together. When it was all in 1,000 pieces, these bolts were cleaned. So I didn't really have to do this, but a little bit of grease did come off still, that was still hanging around. This is just my setup that I had so I could spray paint these. Once I painted them, I did move it into the sun and let them bake for a while. And that seems to have done the job. This paint that I used is designed for brake calipers, so it must be pretty robust. Of course, while the wheels were removed, I did inspect for brake fluid leaks because that's the last thing I want leaking on my refurbed monoblocks. While the car was in the air like this, I also found it a good opportunity to get the trolley jack underneath the differential, so the rear would be easier later. I have this specially prepared socket with masking tape around its perimeter so that I don't scratch the holes on the wheels when installing the bolts. Now when I get this car registered, I would assume they're going to want to take these wheels off, and that's going to upset me greatly. I don't know how I'm going to stop them from scratching them up, other than telling them, you scratched them, you paid for them. So the first wheel is installed now, and that's what it looks like with those freshly painted bolts. I am going to have to find better fitting center caps, but that's something I can worry about later. Starting to look damn good. All 4 wheels now installed, I will go ahead and torque them up. I always do alloy wheels up to 110 Newton meters. I think that's pretty close to spec, if not bang on. So now they're fully installed, I can go ahead and bring the car out and get that suspension at its normal level, because it won't sit at the correct height once it's been off the ground until it's rolled back and forth a few times due to the way the suspension works. Of course, I wanted to go ahead and start the car as well. Ah yes, I forgot something. It's disabled. Well, if it is disabled, I can't remember what I did. I thought I had disconnected the EZL, but that is actually connected. Maybe I just needed to crank it longer. It is currently immobilized. We'll turn that off. Try again. Definitely hear the pump starting. Ah yes, it's gonna fire. There's lots of air bubbles in the fuel tank, so I think it's just vapor locked, because it has been very, very hot in this shed while I was away. Many days 40 degrees or higher. So it's just vapor lock. It's gonna start now. Most interesting of all, let's see if the air conditioner still works. I only just gassed it up after rebuilding it before I went away for 6 weeks, so it has sat for 6 weeks now, which is against protocol anyway. You are supposed to run it for 5 minutes a week, regardless, but that's difficult on a car that you never drive, especially when you're not even in the country. Let's see what happens. I heard the compressor start. That's a good sign. And yeah, that's cold. How very pleasing. Well, now that I've fit the wheels, just going to drive the car back and forth a few times to get it at the rested level of the suspension, and we'll have another look at it and see what it looks like with the refurbed monoblocks on it. That engine runs so smooth. Yeah, this thing is starting to look real good. And by the way, I still haven't washed it. It's absolutely filthy. I can't even imagine what it's going to look like when it's clean. Out of interest, I basically only have the interior left to go. I need to get a wheel alignment done, and then I can get the car registered and start driving it around. I have got the front seat leathers on order, and they will be here in about a month, and then I can start fitting the front seats.